Since Mbappe's joined Real Madrid, certain media outlets have been pushing a very negative agenda on the player and the club. Before this guy even had a chance to kick a ball in a Real Madrid kit, there were reports that him and Vinicius won't be able to play together because of their egos. They tried to make it seem like Rodrigo was going to request a transfer away from the club because of Mbappe's arrival. They were linking Rodrigo with the move to Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, PSG. And now they're trying to put Mbappe in a feud with another one of our star players in Jude Bellingham. And I just need everybody that's watching this video to know, do not believe everything that you read. Because these media outlets are putting out negative stories for clicks. Do I think Jude and Mbappe have a problem? No, I don't. It's funny how everybody wants to focus on the negative stories. But when the stories have come out saying that the club and the dressing room, they love Mbappe. They love his work rate, right? He's been respectful. He's been humble. He's willing to learn. He's willing to play wherever Carlo asks. How come those stories don't get picked up? It's because negative news gets more clicks. That's what sells a lot more than the positive. So let's talk about it, because this is what the media want us to do, right? Now, a story broke recently that brought up how Jude Bellingham is not happy with the form he's been on this season. And he feels like Mbappe's arrival has pushed him to the side, and it's just not working in terms of how he wants to play. Now, I'm not saying that this story is completely false. Do I believe that Jude is upset with his current form? Yes. Last season, what Jude Bellingham did in his debut season for Real Madrid was nothing short of amazing. He had arguably the greatest debut season that a player has ever had for a club. He scored a lot of goals. He won Champions League, La Liga, Spanish Super Cup. He won La Liga Young Player of the Year. He won so many individual awards. I'm telling you guys, Jude Bellingham last season was on fire. And now this season, things have slowed up for him in terms of the goal-scoring department. And I think this is why you're seeing this kind of story get spun right now. But I seriously question whether the people that come to these kind of conclusions have critical thinking skills. Do people not remember that Jude has already missed like 4 to 5 weeks this season? After our first game of the season against Mallorca, Jude got injured. He missed quite a few games. And the reason why that's important is because I'm seeing people try to run with the narrative that at this point in the season, last season, Jude had about 10 to 15 GA. And there are just so many different ways to explain why that is. One, Jude has not played every game this season. He's been injured. Second, Jude is playing a different role. I need people to get through their head. Jude is not a striker. Jude is not a 10. He is a box-to-box midfielder. He is an 8. But because last season we played him out of position and he did such a great job, he's now been misprofiled. People think he's a striker. People think he's a 10 or a false 9. That's not what he is. Last season, we had no striker. Benzema left in the summer, and we didn't go and get an adequate replacement for him. So Carlo, seeing all the physical attributes that Jude has, decided to use him as a false 9/10. And as I said, it worked really well. He had a fantastic season. He was very important in us winning all of our trophies. But now that we have a striker, right, we signed Mbappe, and to a lesser extent, you can include Endrick in that conversation. Now that we've signed 2 strikers, especially Mbappe, who is going to start, now Jude does not need to play that role anymore. Last season, Benzema left, and we had nobody else up front. Yes, we did sign Joselu, and he had a really good loan move, right? Because if it wasn't for him, do we win the Champions League? I don't know. So big up to my guy Joselu. But he was never of the level to be starting week in, week out for Real Madrid. So Carlo got creative, and it worked. But all of Jude's best attributes are off the ball. And last season, he had free roam, right? He was able to track back. He was able to crash the box late. Like, he was positionless. He was everywhere. And I even brought up last season how I thought that diamond formation really only benefited Jude. Because you saw early on, Vinicius was struggling. Rodrigo struggled for a large part of last season. But Vinicius was not necessarily cooking like how we're used to him. But Jude was thriving. Now, I want to show you guys the formation that we ran last season, because this is it right here. The diamond. Now, I don't know why, but Lineup Builder, they don't have Toni Kroos in the database, so I wasn't able to put him in there. But this was the team that we ran last season. And the reason why it worked so well was because even though we were starting in a 4-4-2, once the ball got kicked, and when especially we were on the ball, you saw Vinicius drift out wide. Same thing with Rodrigo. And then Jude just had all this space to run into. And with teams already being so worried about what Vinicius will do on the wing and what Rodrigo will do on the wing, that did open up space for Jude. So on the ball, if you really want to be technical, we kind of played a 4-3-3 with a false 9, because Jude wasn't just sitting up top like this. No, he was a little bit behind them. You get me? So this is why Jude scored so many goals last season. And I think with the skill set that he has in terms of his physical attributes, right? Jude is a unit. He's tall, he's strong, he's fast, pace and power. In La Liga, if you have a good system around you, your pace and power will make you stand out. So this is why Jude cooked last season in terms of GA. Right now, obviously, I don't judge him based off of just goals and assists, because he's been putting up good performances regardless of him getting goals and assists. But we know that now in modern day, people only want to judge a player based off if they get a goal or an assist. That's not how I judge people, right? I have eyes. I think a goal can mask up a stinky performance. And I think Jude's been playing well for us this season. But yes, the goals have dried up. Now, with that being said, we will look at the formations that we've been running this season in just a second. But the other reason why we're seeing this kind of report get brought out now is because Real Madrid has been shit this season. Like, let's just call it what it is. We've not been good so far this season. We've only played well in 3 games. And I think we are having to adjust to Mbappe being there. But I also think the loss of Toni Kroos in that midfield is a big miss as well, because now we do not have that deep line playmaker. Our best midfielder on the ball is Camavinga, and he's only recently come back from injury. So I do want to get into how Real Madrid have been lining up this season, because we've seen about 3 different looks so far. So early on, we were initially running a 4-2-3-1, right? You had Courtois in goal, Carvajal, Militao, and Rudiger center back pairing, Ferland Mendy. In the pivot, you had Tchouaméni, you had Valverde, you had Rodrigo right mid, you had Jude in the 10, and then you had Vinny left, and then you had Mbappe as a striker. And I do agree that this didn't work. Now, this is my preferred formation. I think a 4-2-3-1 gives you perfect balance. But the issue that we've had with this formation is that in attack, right, now that we have an actual striker, it's kind of hard for Jude to crash the box. You get it? Because Mbappe, right, whenever the game kicks off, let's just be honest, right, this is how it ends up going, right? Vinny gets a little higher. He's on the left. Yeah, we've had some issues with the right wing because, Rodrigo also likes to play on the left and Mbappe likes to play on the left. So the front three, they do kind of drift to the left. But because you now have a 9, technically, it's harder for Jude to crash the box because that's where Mbappe is. But I'm just confused on what did people actually expect with a striker coming into this side? Like, what are we doing here? Jude was never a goal scorer. Just because he did it last season does not mean that that's why we bought him. We bought Jude to be an 8. At Dortmund, he was an 8/6, you could even say. At Birmingham, he was a 6/8. Now, his crashing the box late and being able to pick up goals that way is fantastic. But what makes Jude a good player is his work rate. Because when it's time to get on the ball, Jude's involved in the attack. When it's time to go back and defend, Jude is going back and helping out in defense. So, he's everywhere on the pitch. But now that you do have a striker occupying that space, why are we surprised that the goals and the assists are drying up a bit? Jude is still putting in good performances. And I told people in the summer, you'll be able to tell who really knows ball based off how they talk about Jude. Because I knew this was going to be a problem. I knew people were going to try and paint this narrative that Jude is flopping and that Jude is not a good player anymore. And he was a one-season wonder because he's not scoring goals. We don't need Jude to necessarily score goals. Yes, it'd be nice if Carlo found a way to get him more involved in the attack. But now that we have Mbappe, you got Vinicius, Rodrigo, you don't necessarily need Jude to come and save you as many times as he did early last season. But the 4-2-3-1 was one of the formations that you saw us run earlier this season, right? Another one was just the 4-3-3, where it's very similar to a 4-2-3-1. But instead of Jude being in that 10 role, we kind of had him playing as like a left CM. So he would be occupying this space right here. And again, the reason why there was an issue in terms of performance is because, again, remember, Mbappe does prefer to play as a left wing, right? We're asking him to play as a striker. And I think that Mbappe, if he does have a problem playing in the 9, then he should have never joined Real Madrid because we didn't need him to play on the left wing. We already got Vinicius, who's the best player in the world, who's going to be winning the Ballon d'Or. So, yeah, I think Mbappe, he is adjusting to playing more central. But if you go check the average positioning, he does lean more towards the left. Again, so is Rodrigo, right? And I see Rodrigo would be around right here. And now this does cause, a little bit of clutter on the left side of the pitch, which I get can be an issue because, again, now Jude cannot crash into the box. He doesn't have that same space like he did last season. The 4-3-3, I'm not as big of a fan of it as I was the 4-2-3-1, but I did like this formation as well. But again, it didn't work, right? And again, as I said, we've been struggling all season. We've literally been shit. So, what does Carlo do? This is the third formation that we've seen. And I do want to say, I know against Celta Vigo, Carlo tried to run a back 3, but that was so atrocious, we're not going to even talk about that. I don't ever want to see us do a back 3 ever again in my life. Because Celta Vigo should have cooked us. We're lucky that they're shit. Anyways, once Camavinga came back from injury, this is what we've been running lately. The 4-4-2. Because no other formation has been able to work consistently, right? We've been putting in shit performance after shit performance. And we're very lucky that we're still unbeaten in the league so far. But with Camavinga coming back, I agreed with Carlo switching things up. Now, in this formation, Rodrigo gets dropped. He misses out. And you guys know Rodrigo is arguably my favorite player at the club. But we had to try something different. And guess what, chat? The 4-4-2 still isn't working. I think Toni Kroos is the reason why this team is not playing as well. Like, us not going out there in the summer and trying to get a deep-lying playmaker that can replicate the Toni Kroos role was criminal. It was criminal. But this is the formation that we've been running lately. This 4-4-2 with Camavinga coming back. Now, how I think Carlo can possibly get the best out of Jude in terms of goal scoring, right? Let's say if he really is not happy with his lack of GA, which I agree, he should be. I mean, he's involved in the attack, right? I mean, what attacking player does not want to go out there and score goals? Unless you're a center back, left back, right back, goalkeeper, and DM, you're going to be concerned about your goals. Like, that's just natural. So here's what I'm thinking. And you guys can get in the chat and let me know what you think. But if I was Carlo, I think this is how you probably get the best out of Jude. You got to go back to the diamond, the 4-4-2. If you want him to still chip in with goals, then you got to sacrifice somebody in that front three. And just based off the hierarchy, I don't necessarily agree with it, but Rodrigo has to miss out in the starting 11, which sucks because I rate him a lot. And I think Rodrigo is an absolute baller that's very underappreciated. But in terms of when it comes to Vinicius and Mbappe, he's the lesser name. Vinicius, you cannot drop him. Mbappe is the huge signing that we made. He's going to get the first nod. But I think this is how you line up, right? So Courtois in goal. Lucas Vazquez at right back because Danny Carvajal is injured, right? He's done for the season. Then center back, you got Militao. You got Rudiger. Left back, you got Ferland Mendy. Now in the midfield, you got Tchouaméni in the 6. I think Tchouaméni is the best defensive midfielder in the world. I would not replace him with anybody. Left CM, Camavinga. Right CM, Valverde. Right? I think Camavinga, he's the best midfielder that we have on the ball. He's the best. He's able to carry it, right? His ball progression is fantastic. Valverde, I think, is just one of the best midfielders in the world in terms of as an 8. Jude, you put him back in that 10 role. The issue with this midfield, though, is that we don't have any great passer in the team. Like, we don't have, again, somebody that could be that deep-lying playmaker. Jude, Tchouaméni, Valverde, they're all better off the ball. Camavinga's ball progression is good, but Camavinga's passing is not all that. And I do think a lot of people get on to Jude because he's better off the ball. He does sometimes look a little bit clumsy with the ball. But overall, he's still a decent player in possession. Now, do I want Jude to be the guy that's dictating the tempo of the game, that has to be the guy pulling all the strings in our attack? No, I don't. I believe that Arda Güler is our best 10, me personally. I prefer Jude as the left CM. But if you do want to maybe see Jude have a similar role to last season, then it has to be this one. And just as I said, when I showed you guys what we did last season, we line up like this, and then once the whistle gets blown and we're on the ball, Vinicius will drag out wide. Mbappe will go on the right. Then Jude has all this space to run into and crash the box uninterrupted. And then, yeah, you'll see him start chipping in with more goals. But I knew that this season his goals were going to dry up a bit. We've added a striker now. So the job that he was asked to do last season is not the same job that you're going to ask him to do this season. Literally, like, it just does not, it's such common sense. But whatever, the media, they're trying to run with this narrative that things are all bad in the locker room and, you know, things aren't going right, whatever. I need you guys to let me know in the comment section if you believe this. People only want to focus on the negative stories. Nobody wants to focus on the good stories where they talk about how much everybody loves Mbappe and how the locker room is all close. But I get it. When you're not performing well, right? Because we've not been performing well. When you just look as lackluster as we have, negative stories come up. The best way to make these stories go away is to start playing good football. And the pressure is on Carlo to get the best out of all these players. When we first signed Mbappe, I thought that Carlo was the right man for the job because I'm like, well, if there's any manager that's going to be able to get these players to play together, it's going to be him. But I look like it's just not been the best prediction, I guess, because we've been struggling and Carlo is still trying to figure out how to get the best out of these players. So get in the comment section. Let me know if you believe the story of Jude having an issue with Mbappe. I don't believe it at all. I just think he is probably a little bit frustrated in terms of his numbers. But overall, Jude's still been putting in some good performances this season. But the role that he's doing right now, it could not be the role that he was doing last season now that we have a striker, unless we just completely change up the formation. And at this point, I don't mind if Carlo changes the formation because we've not been playing well. So you got to try and get something to work out here, right? Get in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think about that tactical breakdown. Let me know what you think about just how the season's going and how can Carlo go back to getting the best out of Jude. Anything that you guys are thinking, get in the comments. Smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel, people. I'm out.